Hello, everybody, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. My name is Gabe Gunning, and I have the privilege of joining you all as your moderator this evening as we wind our way through Bulgaria with a very special guest host. Now, I've had the privilege of assisting on some Rick Steves Europe tours, but I've never been one as a tour member. And I have not told this to our guest host, but the tour I most want to go on is our Bulgaria tour, in part because I think Bulgaria seems interesting, but in part because I love this guest host and I know that I would have a 50-50 chance of getting him as my tour guide. So this evening, I'm excited to at least virtually tour Bulgaria with him, and I'm eager to introduce to you all our guest host this evening, Bulgarian guide extraordinaire, Stefan Bozadzhiev. Stefan, thank you for being here with us tonight.
Hello, Gabe. Dobar večer from Bulgaria, and thank you for having me with you tonight.
So, Stefan, tell us first where you are in Bulgaria and also when you are.
Well, I am traveling right now. I'm guiding a couple of Americans, and now I'm practically in the middle of nowhere in southern Bulgaria, deep into the Rhodope Mountains, and just a few miles away from the Greek border.
Very nice. And what time is it there?
Well, at the moment it's 3:30 in the morning, the perfect time for presentation.
Exactly. Well, we're so glad that you woke up in the middle of the night to spend some time with us. Stefan, can you also tell me what is it that you do for Rick Steves Europe and how did you first get involved with the company?
Well, Gabe, I started guiding for Rick Steves Europe back in 2014 as a lead guide to Best of Bulgaria. And pretty much ever since, I have enjoyed doing that. I met Rick quite a long time ago. And actually, I met him through the first Rick Steves Europe tour guide in Bulgaria. That's Luba. We have been working together for many years, and practically I know Rick through her.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, I'm very excited to see you side by side with Rick tonight in our Bulgaria episode of Rick Steves Europe. So, shall we get started, Stefan?
Let's give it a start.
All right, here we go. We are going to explore Bulgaria.
Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. This time, I'm surrounded by Slavic culture. It's Bulgaria. Thanks for joining us. Relatively unknown and underappreciated, Bulgaria is a country I've long enjoyed for the surprises it offers the curious traveler. A crossroads of civilizations, it offers a fascinating story. Bulgaria is a land of rich culture with a modern vitality. Its capital has a stunning cathedral. Folk traditions are alive and well. A mountain monastery cradles Bulgaria's spiritual soul. Craftspeople keep traditions alive, and roses offer a fragrant harvest. With glittering treasures from ancient tombs and decrepit monuments to a difficult 20th century, it's a surprising land where this means yes,
Da.
and this means no.
Ne. Ne.
In the southeast of Europe, Bulgaria sits at the east end of the Balkan Peninsula. From Sofia, we visit Rila Monastery, head north to Veliko Tarnovo, explore the Thracian plain, and finish in Plovdiv.
So, Stefan, where in Bulgaria are you from originally, and where in Bulgaria do you live now?
Well, I'm originally from Kazanlak. If you look at the map, this is somewhere where it is written Thracian plain. It's in the Valley of Roses. I grew up there and I was there till I was 18. And then I moved to Sofia for my studies in the law school there. And ever since, I've been living in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria.
Oh, so you studied law?
Yes, I studied law, I graduated, I took my bar exam, and then I started guiding.
Very nice. And what is the place that you're originally from in the Valley of the Roses in the Thracian plain? What is that place like?
Actually, it's a small town, around 50,000 people. Almost every one knows their neighbors, and it's a tiny slice of the Bulgarian culture because there's a UNESCO site, a Thracian tomb there. There are fields of roses, and practically it's in the very center of Bulgaria. So wherever you are going, wherever you are traveling, you should stop and visit this place.
Very nice. And do you go back sometimes for holidays?
Oh yes, it is just 150 miles away from the capital, so you can easily get there. I stay there with my family. For us Bulgarians, family is very important, so we always get together for celebrations or just to share meal together, to chat, and of course, to discuss life and politics.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to discussing those things with you and to visiting both the Thracian plain and Sofia in the next hour. So here we go.
Sofia may be the capital of one of the poorest countries in the European Union, but you wouldn't know it strolling its vibrant boulevards. With 1 million people, Sofia is delightfully livable. It has an airy, open street plan, fine old architecture, lush parks, and a relaxed pace of life. The city is named for holy wisdom, represented by this statue of Sveta Sofia. She proudly tops a column marking the center of town. Because of its strategic position, Bulgaria sits on layers of history, from ancient Greeks and Romans to fearsome Slavic warriors, from Ottoman pashas to Cold War communists, each left its mark. In this town, anywhere you dig, you find ancient ruins, bits of Roman Sofia. Preserving its rich heritage is a priority, and the city's infrastructure is built around its archaeological treasures. Every day, commuters walk by reminders of Sofia's distant past. Bulgaria's complicated history has made it a melting pot, and with its ethnic diversity came different religions. Here in Sofia, within a few steps, you've got mosques, churches, and a synagogue. Most Bulgarians, like Russians and Greeks, are Orthodox Christians, and the Orthodox tradition stretches from here far to the east. And this mosque survives from 5 centuries of Ottoman rule. Today, 1 in every 10 Bulgarian citizens is Muslim, whose ancestors came from Turkey. A block away is one of Europe's largest synagogues. Bulgaria was one of the only countries in Nazi territory that refused to turn its Jewish population over to Hitler. None of Bulgaria's 49,000 Jews were deported to concentration camps.
So Stefan, can you talk a little bit more about that, about how Bulgaria managed to save its Jewish population during World War II?
Yes, Gabe, thanks for stopping here. This is one of the most important moments of modern Bulgarian history, and not many people know that. Although we were ally of Nazi Germany in World War II, Bulgaria managed to save all of its 49,000 Jewish people. And how did it happen? Well, people got united. People from all walks of life, from every single part of the country, workers in the factories, farmers from the countryside, members of the intelligentsia, the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, politicians, and of course the Bulgarian royal family. They stood up united. And I can say that it was a grassroots movement which involved a lot of Bulgarians. So it was not an individual here or individual there, it was the whole society. And this is how, in those dark times, we managed to shed a little bit light.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that, Stefan. And I see in just a second here, there you are. So excited to see you appearing next to Rick. In a moment, Rick, I know, is not going to pronounce your name completely correctly in the episode. Could you pronounce your last name for us?
Yes, absolutely. It is Bozadzhiev, and
Bozadzhiev.
yeah, you did it right, and it's named after this drink, boza. It's made from fermented barley or rye. It's sweet and it's brownish and it's very delicious.
Is that a very common drink? And like when people hear your last name, do they all think of that drink?
Every single Bulgarian, when they hear my name, it's not very common name, they know that it comes from this drink. My ancestors used to make it, and that's the reason why I still have this name.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess it's great to have a positive association with your name. If every time people hear it, they think of something delicious. Stefan, could you just give us a peek? What's a typical day of filming with Rick look like?
Well, it's not exactly a typical day. It's a typical 24 hours of work with Rick. Definitely, first of all, it's a lot of work, but it is a rewarding work because Rick is a workaholic. And I really love that because every single detail is taken into consideration so that we have this great result in the end. But it's very easy to work with him.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to seeing you work together in this scene. Here we go.
Joined by my Bulgarian friend and fellow tour guide, Stefan Bozadzhiev. Stefan's my teacher for all things Bulgarian, including some fun little insights. How many springs in Sofia like this?
We have more than 40, and this is just one of them.
And the people, why do they like this so much?
Because they'll have an eternal life if they drink it.
So this is healthy water then?
Very healthy. Try.
It's warm?
Yeah.
It's minerally?
Yes, a little bit sulfury probably.
I'm feeling better already. It's nice.
And I see it in your eyes.
Sofia prides itself on its mineral springs, which attracted the first settlers here in ancient times. And to this day, these perpetually flowing water taps are appreciated by the locals. And the city even has an actual yellow brick road. These bricks were a gift from Austria's Emperor Franz Joseph, who, after what must have been a muddy visit in 1907, wanted to encourage Sofia to pave its streets.
All right, what do you think of that story, Stefan?
It's a very beautiful story, and it's completely not true. This is one of the little secrets of tour guides. Yes, people love these stories, but the fact is that it is the early 1900s. Bulgaria is a new state. Just 30 years ago, it was liberated. So Sofia was a very young capital, and our mayor at that time was trying to modernize the city, trying to have more European-looking buildings. And if you have a brilliant building, it's not possible to have a dirt street. So this is the reason why he ordered this type of bricks to cover the central area of Sofia, which still stands today.
Well, Stefan, does the yellow brick road at least lead to an emerald city?
Well, I believe that in Sofia, you can find pieces of the Emerald City everywhere. You just need to have eyes and heart for that.
Perfect. Well, I suppose there's no place like home, and looking forward to hearing more about your home of Sofia. Here we go.
The bricks lead to Sofia's Cathedral, one of the largest Orthodox churches in Christendom. It's the only national church I can think of that's named for a sainted military hero of a different country, Alexander Nevsky of Russia. The Bulgarians feel a Slavic kinship with Russia, which in 1878 helped liberate them from centuries of Ottoman rule. This church was built to honor the Russian soldiers who died to free Bulgaria from the so-called Turkish yoke. Russian architects designed the church with a mix of Russian and Neo-Byzantine styles. Its cascading gold and copper domes are striking from every angle. Inside, you're immersed in the glow of Orthodox tradition. Walls glitter with gold and silver icons, all from the early 20th century. Worshippers show their devotion with the help of sacred images. The elaborate marble iconostasis separates parishioners from the main altar. It's lined with saints, including the church's namesake, Alexander Nevsky. The faithful light candles to help power their prayers. Lower-level candelabras are for the deceased. Higher-level ones represent prayers for the living.
Stefan, how much of Bulgaria's population considers themselves Orthodox today?
According to the official papers, more than 80% of the Bulgarians are Eastern Orthodox. But the funny thing is that the majority of them are not observant. For many of the Bulgarians, belonging to the Eastern Orthodox Christianity is a cultural thing. It is something that unites us. It is something that has preserved us during the long period of Ottoman rule in Bulgarian lands. So this is the reason why typically if we say Bulgarian, quite common, you could come with the idea of Eastern Orthodoxy.
And would it be acceptable for tourists to go visit the churches or go to a service?
It's completely possible. Even if you can see here the ladies, they have a lot of skin visible. Many of our churches, there's no problem to enter there. In some churches, of course, you have to cover yourself, especially for the ladies. You have to cover your short sleeves, but that will be all. No problem to visit any single church in Bulgaria.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, let's continue onward.
Sofia has lots of sprawling parks, offering apartment dwellers a green and inviting space to hang out. And many of the parks come with heavy reminders of a tough 20th century. After World War II, Bulgaria ended up in the Soviet bloc. Even though Bulgaria was famously docile under Russian rule, life under communism wasn't easy here. And today, while enthusiastically part of the EU, Bulgaria still wrestles with its communist legacy. Although the communists are gone, their architectural heritage still looms large. At Sofia's main intersection, today's parliament offices fill the Stalinist-style former Communist Party headquarters. All over Bulgaria, controversy swirls around crumbling communist-era monuments like this one. Should they be allowed to stand, or should they be torn down?
So what happened to this one, Stefan? Is it still up?
It is gone. If you go there, you see just a beautiful garden with a monument of a lion there. This is a monument built in 1981, representing the long history of Bulgaria. But as you can see the status from the picture, from the video, it was crumbling. Well, this was the reason why the authorities decided, let's take it away. The bronze statues from the monument are actually preserved and they're waiting for better days to come.
And Stefan, what is the relationship like between Bulgaria and Russia nowadays?
Well, Gabe, if I have to answer properly to this question, most probably the time won't be enough at all, only discussing this topic. But in short, I may say that it's a special relationship. And by special relationship, I do not mean that it is always negative or always positive. Actually, what unites us with Russia or the Russians is the Slavic kinship. It is the Orthodox Christianity. But of course, quite often, there are a lot of political aspects of our relationship, economical aspects, energy, and this makes it quite uneasy at some points.
Excellent. Well, let's look at some more communist-era sculpture.
Many have already been removed and are displayed here at Sofia's Museum of Socialist Art. In this garden of communist propaganda, Lenin, who once topped the main pillar in the center of town, still faces the storm. The red star, which for 50 years capped the city's grandest edifice, no longer inspires. And Georgy Dimitrov, the Bulgarian Lenin, is simply ignored. Today, these statues seem to preach their outdated ideology only to each other. We're driving deep into the mountains south of Sofia. The peaceful beech forests seem a world away from the big city. Finally, we reach Rila Monastery, fortress on the outside, spiritual sanctuary inside. Within its walls, you feel something special, both sacred and timeless. Founded in the 10th century, Rila Monastery was a stronghold for Bulgarian faith, language, and culture during nearly 500 years of Ottoman rule. And today, it remains the country's revered national treasure. This beautiful place has been a holy site and refuge for over 1,000 years. The monastery is still home to a handful of monks who host both tourists and pilgrims. This bell tower, the oldest surviving part of the monastery, served as a final refuge in case of attack. The iconic church is surrounded by a graceful arcade. Under the arcade, vivid 19th century frescoes depict Bible stories, peopled by angels and devils, saints and sinners. Here's St. John of Rila, who, seeking a hermetic way of life, founded this remote monastery in the year 927. These scenes show the 40 days of trials your soul goes through after death. A guardian angel accompanies the soul, represented by a small child, through a gauntlet of temptations. This place feels so venerable. Did you come here as a child?
Yes, actually many times with my family. It was a favorite destination.
So why is Rila so important to the Bulgarian people?
Because actually our most favorite, most beloved saint, Saint Ivan Rilsky, was buried nearby.
Oh, okay, so this is like you could say the Jerusalem for the Bulgarian people.
Absolutely. The heart of every single Bulgarian belongs to this place, belongs to this monastery here.
You come here and celebrate Bulgaria.
We celebrate Bulgaria and the Bulgarian spirit.
So, Stefan, it sounds like visiting this monastery is a very important experience for any Bulgarian. In talking with maybe Americans that you know, what would you say is the American equivalent of the Rila Monastery?
Well, it's initially when I think about it, I was not sure what to say. That's why, I asked my dear friends that I'm traveling right now, the Americans, what would be their association with Rila Monastery. It was not that easy for them as well. So what is Rila Monastery? It is something that unites Bulgarians. And when we think of something like that in the US, my friends, they thought of Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, they thought of the Lincoln Memorial in DC, something that actually binds us together so that united we will be strong.
Have most Bulgarians made a trip to the Rila Monastery? Is that a very common thing?
I may say that I'll be very, very, very surprised if I hear that there is a Bulgarian who has never visited Rila Monastery. This destination is a must. When you go there, you travel to the Bulgarian spirit, to the Bulgarian history.
Excellent. Well, let's continue onward and see what spirit of Bulgaria we find in other regions.
Driving across Bulgaria, traffic is sparse, roads are good, and since we're here in the spring, everything is green and fertile. Our next stop is Bulgaria's medieval capital, Veliko Tarnovo. one of Europe's most dramatically set cities, it winds through a misty gorge at a sharp bend of the Yantra River. The town is shaped like a natural amphitheater. It's more vertical than horizontal, with a mix of blocky modern construction and traditional Bulgarian homes. The ruins of its fortress are a reminder of the city's importance 800 years ago. They mark the site of the heavily fortified headquarters of a long-gone Bulgarian kingdom. This towering monument commemorates that vast and mighty realm. It was ruled by the Asen dynasty. According to legend, the Asen brothers planted a sword on this spot and declared, "Here shall be Bulgaria." This was a golden age for Bulgaria, the 13th and 14th centuries, when its empire dominated the Balkan Peninsula and stretched all the way to Ukraine. Today's locals have different aspirations. A walk along Veliko Tarnovo's craft street reveals a thriving folk culture with opportunities to watch artisans at work. Rumi carves with a keen eye. Rashko paints icons with a delicate touch. Nina skillfully turns clay into art. Meanwhile, her son finishes each piece with patterns that go back centuries. Todor, the silversmith, with his strong hands and distinctive technique, transforms strips and strands of metal into exquisite jewelry. And nearby, a folkloric dance troupe shares their traditional music.
So, Stefan, do you do any of this traditional dancing?
Yes, I can dance. I'm definitely not the best dancer in the world, but that's part of the traditions, and I observe these traditions. It's quite fun, and when we get together with my friends, definitely at some point there will be folklore dances involved.
So you would do, I mean, what type of celebration would you do these dances for?
Well, I can give you the next example. For example, it's the New Year's Eve. It's obligatory. When it is midnight, everyone goes out in the streets and celebrate, and we celebrate with one special dance. It's circle dance, huro, the so-called Danube dance. We dance, we celebrate the New Year. We start the New Year with such dances.
Very nice. Well, Stefan, I don't know if you remember this, but back in January of 2020, when we had our guides reunion, right before the world shut down, you were in Edmonds, Washington, for our guide summit, and you actually brought some little gifts. And I still have one on my fridge. I have this little Bulgarian dancer.
Yes, yes, I remember that. That's cool.
I hear that you have a craft as well to share with us.
Yes, I do. A couple of days ago, I visited my good friends that we have just shown. Let me just a second. You see,
Wow.
it's pottery. It's a clay plate, and it is made by my good friend Nina in Veliko Tarnovo. That's very traditional pottery. It's called graffito pottery. That was the pottery of the Bulgarian royals in the medieval period. And now she's one of the very few, if not the only person working together with her son and making this special pottery. And what we
Oh,
have
so
here,
it was the people from the episode that we just saw a
it
couple
was the
minutes ago.
people from the episode.
Wow.
Exactly,
Very
exactly.
nice. And
And
maybe this is a
have
silly
the
question,
eagle.
but would people actually eat off of plates like that, or are they just used for decoration?
You can directly eat from this. There's no problem. It is lead-free. You can put it in the washing machine. You can dry it, whatever, and it's still great. So you feel like a royal.
And Stefan, do you feel like the folk traditions of Bulgaria are being well preserved? Does the government support programs to help preserve the culture, or do you feel like there are threats to continuing the culture? I mean, you said that your friend is kind of one of the last people that can make those dishes in the traditional way.
Uh, Unfortunately, as all around the world, many of the traditional crafts are dying out, but it's good that there are some white birds in the field who are trying to preserve them, including my good friends. And when we talk about such traditions on a positive note, folklore dances, they have never been more popular. A lot of young people tend to attend dance classes. There are special dance clubs for Bulgarian folklore music only. So definitely folklore dances is on the rise.
Mhm. Excellent. And I should have asked earlier, but what does the dish represent? Is that a specific bird on it, or?
Well, that's actually the king of the birds. That should be eagle. Pretty much it's the very same pattern as it was used in the medieval period. And why exactly an eagle? That was the symbol of the Bulgarian kings. The lion was the symbol of the state, and the eagle was the king. So practically eating from the king's plate.
Yeah, and I guess that the Bulgarian king and the United States have something in common. You know, we both are represented by the eagle.
Absolutely, absolutely. The king of the birds.
All right, well, we will get back to those Bulgarian dancers, let them finish up their final few steps, and we will continue onward. Here we go.
Leaving Veliko Tarnovo, we cross over the Balkan Mountains. At the top of Shipka Pass, a memorial marks the site where, in 1877, a combined Bulgarian and Russian army finally turned the tide in the battle against the Ottomans. This pivotal battle led to the eventual demise of the Ottoman Empire and to the creation of the modern independent country of Bulgaria. Down in the valley, golden domes mark Shipka Church, which honors the sacrifice of those Russian and Bulgarian troops. Built by Russia a century ago, it's a fine example of the exuberant Muscovite style. Capping a nearby ridge, miles from anything, is one of the most bizarre sights I've seen anywhere. Buzluja, an abandoned monument to the Bulgarian Communist Party. This gigantic conference hall was built in the 1980s, in the waning days of communist rule. With the end of the Cold War and the arrival of capitalism, it was abandoned. Today, the lyrics of the International Communist Anthem are literally falling off the walls. And graffiti makes it clear who won the Cold War. Venturing inside, we discover an eerie, crumbling world of vandalized propaganda. A roof that's barely held up by its hammer and sickle, and disintegrating mosaics, once so proud, and now just an artifact of a failed system.
So, Stefan, how can the effects of communism still be seen in Bulgaria today?
Actually, many people from the generations who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they'll feel nostalgic about this regime. They will lament those times when there was security. This is what they would say, all kind of security, social security. But the young people, they see advantages of the free world. They see advantages of being of the European Union, being able to travel freely without waiting for permission from your own government to leave the country. So, of course, as everything else, there are mixed feelings, but most of the people now, they are really, really in favor of the Western world, of democracy, and the European Union.
So, Stefan, I know that in some other Eastern and Central European countries like Hungary, like Poland, their democracies seem to be weakening in some regards, and they're not always on the best terms with the European Union. How healthy is the Bulgarian democracy, and what is their relationship with the EU like?
The Bulgarian democracy is here to stay. This is what I would say. Yes, there are a lot of challenges to our democracy, but at the end of the day, it's this constant reminder that we don't take it for granted. We fight for our democracy and rights every single day. In Bulgaria, it's the same. And the good thing is that now we finally, after almost 30 years since the fall of the communist regime, we have a strong civil society which is ready to go out in the streets and protest if there are problems with our democracy. I would say in short that we don't have these problems with the EU like Hungary or Poland. Why? Because our government is enjoying the perks of having funds from the EU.
And what are some of those perks?
A lot of money coming to Bulgaria. Most of this money, they go to different infrastructure projects. A lot of roads, a lot of highways are being built. And this is the reason that you can travel a lot. You can travel freely, good roads, something that was not the case 15 or 20 years ago when there was a lot of potholes. And some of those other perks are that practically when we have the support of the EU and the money from the EU, we can invest in our future.
Infrastructure improvements. Sounds nice. Well, let's get back on the highway and let's go to your home region where you came from. Let's continue on to the Thracian plain.
The Thracian plain, defined by Bulgaria's two major mountain ranges, was a busy funnel of trade throughout ancient times. 4 centuries before Christ, back when Socrates and Plato were doing their thing in Athens, about 300 miles to the south, Bulgaria was known as Thrace. The Thracians were an impressive civilization. We've learned a lot about them through their tombs. Thracians buried their royalty in distinctive dome-shaped tombs that were covered in earth. Dozens of these tombs are scattered across the valley, along with hundreds of decoy mounds designed to fool grave robbers. Buried deep under those piles of earth, the tombs were impressive engineering feats from 300 years before Christ. And this replica tomb demonstrates how even in the afterlife, the deceased would be surrounded by comforting images.
So what do we have? We have the Thracian king who was buried here, and the royal banquet with the gods, musicians, servants, horses, and on the top of it we have races with chariots, which is a part of a funeral procession.
Tombs held a trove of golden treasure, now displayed in museums throughout Bulgaria. This bronze head of a powerful king humanizes those ancient Thracians. This region is also called the Valley of the Roses, and we're here just in time for the rose harvest. Vast fields of roses bloom overnight. Workers rise before the sun to quickly hand-pick the new blooms. they need to work early, before the rising sun evaporates the essential oils. While the fields smell sweet, the work is hard. At the distillery, millions of blooms are quickly unloaded. Freshness is critical. The bags of roses are stacked high before being dumped into the stills. So many flowers and so much hard work. The essential oils evaporate, then recondense, like fragrant moonshine. The payoff? A wide variety of rose oil products appreciated both abroad and at home.
So, Stefan, how big of a deal is the flower industry in Bulgaria?
Flower industry, and especially the industry related to essential oil plants, is really big and is getting bigger. We have different essential oil plants. Of course, the rose is the most recognizable one, but there we also use sage, thyme, linden, and last year, Bulgaria became one of the largest producers of lavender oil. And almost all of these, they are for export. So it's really big.
And what types of people usually work these jobs in the field? I mean, would you consider it an ethical industry? Is it a good job to have, to be working in the rose fields?
Gabe, it's a really interesting question because almost all of Bulgarian state advertisements about rose production, they will show you people in folklore costumes working in the fields. As you saw, there's nothing like that. It's a hard labor. You should be there around 5 in the morning, and not many people are willing to do so. But there's one group of people, an underprivileged group of people, who are mostly in the fields, and those are Roma people. Many of those people that you saw in the video, in the field, they are Roma people.
Well,
And
I mean, 5 a.m., that really gives meaning to wake up and smell the roses. I certainly struggled to be signing on at 9 a.m. So I don't think that would be the job for me. But that is very interesting about how it's kind of depicted more idyllically, but doesn't necessarily meet that ideal. And were there a lot of, you said that you grew up kind of in the Rose Valley, right?
that's correct.
So you never had a job as a high school student working in the rose fields?
Well, I had it once, but just for a couple of days. It was not that easy. It was not that easy, to be honest. Actually, the skillful workers, they can pick up to 100 and 120 pounds of rose petals, and you're based on the amount of rose petals that you have picked. Well, I didn't do a perfect job, and then decided I have to stick to my books and to my techniques from school.
And so you became a lawyer instead. But
And I became a lawyer instead of working in the fields, yeah. And
very
instead of
nice.
being
Well,
a lawyer, now I'm a tour guide.
yeah, and you probably get back to the fields every now and then with your tour groups.
Yes, that's correct. Actually, many of the distilleries are open for visits, and you can go and visit them, but be sure that it should be in May or June when it is the rose harvest.
Excellent. Well, Stefan, since we're kind of in agriculture mode, I hear that you have some food that you wanted to share with us this evening, some traditional Bulgarian food that you're munching on.
Yep, what I have today, and finally I'll have the chance to sample it. So first, okay, let's slide down. What I have here is the traditional shopska salad. So we have tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and a lot of cheese on top of it. And well, definitely if you sample the tomatoes. It's real tomatoes. It's not plastic. They're very juicy and it's delicious, but it won't be enough because it always goes well with our national drink. That's rakia, pretty much like, think of the Italian grappa, but it's much better, much
Or
smoother.
a couple weeks ago, we had Rocky with Lale. Is that the Rocky, Rakia?
It's just the name,
Oh.
but our drink is better than our neighbor's drink because there is no anise inside. So typically it's made from grapes. That's the most typical type, but it could be plums, apricot, peach. Even this one that I'm sampling right now is from strawberries.
Oh, very nice. I don't think I've ever had alcohol derived from strawberries. Sounds delicious. You'll have to send me some.
So, or another reason to come to Bulgaria.
Another reason to come to Bulgaria. You
Absolutely.
sold me on it.
Yeah, and I think that there's even more reasons to come here. And another reason for that will be my other meal, which is banitsa. Actually, typically I would make it on my own, but as I've told you, I'm traveling in the middle of nowhere. So my hosts in the hotel, they were quite good. And actually the chef to prepare the banitsa for me. And what is that? Actually, it's a traditional pastry with filo dough, eggs, and cheese. We can have it for breakfast. We can have it for lunch. We can have it for dinner. And of course, when we eat it, okay, there's something else. Excuse me.
Oh my goodness, we have a full 5-course meal here, Stefan.
Yes, and it's like a lab. There are so much stuff around me. And it should be accompanied with this drink. It's a yogurt drink named ayran. So it's made, ayran, made from yogurt, water, and a pinch of salt. Yep, I like it. I do like it. And especially it's perfect for early birds in the morning.
Yeah. Yes. Or in your case, in the middle of the night.
Yep. That's correct. Okay.
All right.
Let me try, because I'm not sure what the chef made.
Let's see if it measures up to your banitsa that you make.
Oh, it's almost as good as the one that I make. Okay.
I'll take your word for it, Stefan. All right, well, let's continue on while you enjoy that veritable feast you have going on over there. Here we go, continuing our Bulgarian tour.
Kazanlak, the main town of the valley, is especially festive in May. And we happen to drop in on a national holiday. It's the Day of Slavic Culture. Throughout the country, school's out, and people are celebrating. Like much of the Slavic world, Bulgaria uses the Cyrillic alphabet. And today, flowers are laid at a monument to Cyril and Methodius, the missionary saints who invented the Cyrillic script to help introduce Christianity to the Slavs back in the 9th century. It's a great excuse for a parade, a celebration not only of their alphabet, but of the Bulgarian language and culture in general. And it seems the entire town has turned out for the event.
So Stefan, did you partake in some of these types of celebrations?
Oh, yes, I did. And many times. Actually, May 24th is one of the most joyous celebration in Bulgaria. Why? Because we celebrate our alphabet. We celebrate our letters, the Cyrillic alphabet that we are so proud of. And not only this is the day of the proms. Our 12th graders and also our first graders, they're celebrating. They are parading the streets, and every single person is out to see the children. And it is a fun event, as you can see. Everyone is there with a lot of music, a lot of colorful balloons. So I've been there.
And what is it that the children were chanting?
Oh, those children that that we just saw, they were chanting, it was in the past, it will be now, but our school is the best one in town.
Well, good to see some school pride. Let's continue
Absolutely.
onward.
Our final stop is Bulgaria's most enjoyable city, Plovdiv, with a history going back centuries before Christ. From its ruined Acropolis, it's easy to see the hills upon which ancient Plovdiv was built. In the 4th century BC, it was called Philippopolis, the city of Philip. He was the father of Alexander the Great. Centuries later, the Roman Emperor Trajan built this 5,000-seat theater. The stage wall is mostly intact. The stony seats are etched with their original numbers.
So what are those symbols, Stefan?
Oh, actually, what we see here, it's carved on the marble seating. And if you look closely, we'll see that these are Greek letters from the ancient Greek alphabet. Actually, this was the language spoken, the alphabet used in these provinces of the Roman Empire, in the Balkan provinces of the Roman Empire. So every single letter that you see corresponds to a certain neighborhood from the town of Philippopolis. So if you are from a given neighborhood, you go there and you look for your own letter, and then you can take the seat.
So it would be like showing up to a stadium today and seeing your zip code on the street, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much that's the idea.
And this theater is still used today?
The theater is still in use. It is one of the best concert venues in Bulgaria. There are a lot of concerts, a lot of plays taking place there. They have an open air opera festival. They have international folklore competitions, and also they have some hard rock concerts as well.
Well, Stefan, you let me know when Lady Gaga is going to perform there, and we'll go and see a concert there together.
Okay, we have a deal.
Okay, let's continue on.
And the functioning theater remains a part of the community to this day. On the surrounding hillsides, Plovdiv's atmospheric Old Town is a showcase of delightful buildings from the 1800s, a time when the ruling Ottoman Empire was in decline and Bulgarian cultural pride was on the rise. The style? Bulgarian National Revival. One of the finest examples is open to the public. Hindlian House was decorated to the taste of its merchant owner.
This is the house of Stefan.
Elegant in its day, it still feels lived in, with opulent seating rooms, fine furnishings, even a rosewater fountain. Souvenir wall paintings show off some of the merchant's far-flung business travels, from Stockholm to Venice. Nearby is a museum celebrating the work of the Bulgarian artist Zlatiu Bozadzhiev. Bozadzhiev, this is a self-portrait with his wife, was already a well-established artist when his health took a terrible turn. In 1951, he suffered a stroke which made his right hand useless. But that didn't stop him. He picked up the brush in his left hand and learned to paint brilliantly in a completely different style. Over the next 25 years, he reveled in bright colors with a childlike exuberance, slapping thick, Van Gogh-like brushstrokes onto the canvas. Bozadzhiev's best works feature timeless slices of peasant life. Back in pagan times, people prayed not in temples, but under trees. Locals sit around a public fountain, sipping glasses of wine. Peasant women cluster around a fire, knitting as they eke out warmth. A fattened pig is slaughtered as townsfolk gather. The importance of community is celebrated, and each weathered face tells a story.
So Stefan, is Plovdiv kind of considered, one of the main cultural centers in Bulgaria then, it seems like?
Plovdiv is actually the cultural capital of Bulgaria due to the number of museums, galleries, other cultural venues, the number of cultural activities taken place, and of course the layers of different civilizations. And probably this was the reason why in 2019 Plovdiv became the European capital of culture. Every year in Europe we have two European cultural capitals, and 2019 it was the time for Plovdiv to shine.
Well, I'm glad that Plovdiv was able to get in their full year in 2019 before things shut down. So very exciting. And now I think that we have a good meal in store.
It's dinner.
Is that, sorry to pause again, is that banitsa that the waitress just set on the table?
Yes, that's banitsa. That's banitsa. I'm not making it up. Banitsa is definitely real deal. And as you can see, I keep eating it.
I know. And how about this banitsa that was served at this dinner? Was that as good as yours?
Let me try to refresh my memories. No,
Okay.
mine is better.
Well, I trust you on that too.
Time, and Stefan's taking us out for a meal of updated Bulgarian classics. Prices are low here, making even a splurge like this surprisingly affordable. So what is this drink then?
This is a traditional Bulgarian drink, and it is called rakia.
So it's unusual for me to have the firewater with the salad. Is that typical in Bulgaria?
This is very traditional in Bulgaria. And we say na zdrave.
Na zdrave.
To your health.
To your health. Na zdrave. You like it?
Yes, yes, of course.
Now this is funny in Bulgaria. You went yes.
Yes,
like, it's confusing for a tourist because we go yes. And what is no?
Ne.
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 So no, yes.
Yes. Da, ne.
Okay. Stefan, can I have another sip of my Rocky, please?
Ne.
No. As the second course arrives, it's clear that Bulgarian cuisine is a tasty mix of the many cultures that have influenced this country. You know, this is frankly more interesting than I would expect. When you go to Eastern Europe, you think of potatoes, and kraut, and heavy meat, but it feels more Mediterranean.
Yes, actually, you're right. Bulgaria is a crossroad of civilizations between the north and south, east and west.
You got Mediterranean, so it's a little bit of Greece, a little bit of Turkey, and a lot of Bulgaria.
And a lot of Bulgaria. Yeah.
While most tourists stick to the cobbled old town, modern Plovdiv has plenty to offer as well. Just steps away is the vibrant and fun-loving corner of town called the Mousetrap. Newly revitalized, this artsy district is where foodies and creative young people congregate. Thanks to some progressive policies, the graffiti in this neighborhood seems to add to, rather than detract from, the ambiance. In Plovdiv, as in many European cities, local leaders understand that buildings are going to be tagged anyway. Their pragmatic solution? Commission only the best street artists to create art, rather than eyesores. Plovdiv is a city with many personalities built upon layers of history. Under the 14th century Ottoman mosque, they've excavated an ancient stadium. And these ruins have been artfully integrated into 21st century life. They kick off Plovdiv's liveliest pedestrian boulevard, where people promenade in style, past inviting parks and sidewalk cafes. At this crossroads of civilizations, today's Bulgarians have blended old and new into a culture distinctly their own.
So, Stefan, I will confess that and I'm guessing some others viewing, but I'll speak for myself, sometimes kind of the Eastern European nations or the nations in the former Soviet bloc kind of blend together a little bit. How would you say that Bulgaria is distinct from some of those other countries around it?
Well, if you ask a regular Bulgarian, they'll say We're distinct because we are Bulgarians, but this won't help you at all to understand what I mean, right? How we are distinct? Well, pretty much because we have been a blend. Actually, when the Bulgarian state was founded, there were three main ethnic groups: Bulgars, Slavs, and Thracians. So every single ethnic group gave something so that we could have the modern Bulgarian nation. Actually, we are not that different from the people all around the world, because in the end of the day, we have much more in common rather than any divisions that might exist.
Excellent. I love that. Yep, that's what we always say is when you travel, you see the differences, but you also see how much in common you have with the rest of the world and people who seem so foreign to you. All right, well, let's finish off this episode, and I think that at the end we have some bloopers.
Bulgaria is a great place to travel, a place where East and West mix harmoniously. The result, a land that's both exotic and fun to visit. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rick Steves. Until next time, keep on traveling.
Да, не.
Да, не.
Да, не.
From that so-called Turkish yoke.
This is the royal tomb here. Ow, I hurt my head. Let's do it again.
All right. Excellent. Well, Stefan, I know that we have a lot of questions for you from our audience. Before we get to those, though, can we have a quick word from our presenter? Tell us the things that you're working
on. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. And I'll be very happy for those who are watching us right now to check our Best of Bulgaria tour. I know that there's still a few available seats for 2022, but if you don't manage to do it next year, check our next dates, probably in 2 years, in 3 years, who knows? And at the same time, what we are working on, we have small tailor-made tours to some really exotic destinations. The Western Balkans, like the former Yugoslav republics and Albania. I have just returned from a tour to Romania, Moldova, and a bit of Ukraine. And also, we have tours running in Central Asia, the former Soviet republics, with very, very interesting sites to visit following the ancient Silk Road. So definitely a lot of interesting tours, and only the most intrepid travelers come with us.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm very excited to do the Rick Steves Bulgaria tour with you someday, but I'm also very interested in Romania. And I know that our tours don't go there yet. So I would love to add on and go with you through Romania. So we have plenty of questions for you, Stefan. We're going to get to just a few of them. But first, a lot of people are wondering, how is Bulgaria doing these days? How is the country faring, especially with the pandemic currently?
Well, we were doing pretty well. Unfortunately, at the moment, we have one of the lowest vaccination rates in Europe, and this is not because of the lack of vaccines. We have a whole plethora of vaccines, but the fact is that there was some wrong communication strategy from the side of the health authorities, and this is the reason why many people were concerned having vaccines. For example, I got my shot in March, and I am not beaming in the dark. I don't have horns, and I don't have chips in my blood, whatever. But unfortunately, many of the Bulgarians, well, they don't believe these conspiracy theories, but they're just a bit perplexed. And I believe that in the upcoming months, things will get much, much better with a new communication strategy.
Very good. Well, we're hopeful for that as well. Getting on to some travel related questions. I know that one thing that people always want to know is, they're all excited about Bulgaria. What time of year should they go? What's the best time to visit Bulgaria?
There won't be only one answer. If you want to have the best weather, definitely think about May and June, probably also September. But if you want to beat the crowds, I would say that October and April are also really good months. The weather is still nice, but there are not so many people, and you can practically have many of the sites on your own. So that will be a really good time of the year as well.
Excellent. And in terms of how is public transportation in Bulgaria? If people are going to go by public transport, should they rent a car instead, or are there good buses or trains?
Well, when I hear this question, I always laugh and say, in any case, do not take a train. The trains in Bulgaria, they're a bit slow. If you want a really scenic ride, go with a train. The average speed will be a little bit less than 40 miles per hour. So you won't be very fast, but still it will be a scenic ride. However, there are a lot of rent-a-car companies. You can have a rent-a-car, and no worries, many of the road signs, the street names, they are both in Bulgarian and English language, so you won't be lost. Or even if you're lost, there's nothing better than this, being lost in a foreign country, because you never know what you'll find there.
So, Stefan, you mentioned the Bulgarian and the English, and I guess I'm wondering how many people speak English, but just in general, we saw that Bulgarians are very proud of their alphabet and their language. How many languages does the average Bulgarian speak?
Well, this is the destiny to be born in a small country. You need to speak at least one foreign language. Many of the people have at least basic knowledge and into foreign languages. And when we talk about English, definitely try to talk to people from younger generations, because English in more than 95% of the schools in Bulgaria is taught as the first foreign language. So definitely, if you're lost, you will find someone to talk to and ask questions. Or if you know Russian language, which I know is definitely the case, you can always ask the people, but it will be the people from generations in their 50s and 60s when this was the foreign language taught in schools. But in general, no problem with English language in Bulgaria.
So Stefan, Larry's wondering, we saw that obviously the flower industry is big in Bulgaria. What are other large aspects of the Bulgarian industry?
Well, in the recent years, of course, we have large companies in the area of mining. So it will be gold, copper mining, also companies related to energy. The energy sector is huge, gas, petrol. But also in the recent years, what is really important for the Bulgarian economy, this is in the sphere of production of different software. It could be software for vehicles, it could be different mobile apps, websites development. Bulgarians are very proud in that. And Sofia is a hub for many international companies in this area, regional hub.
Excellent. Well, that's some good information about work life in Bulgaria. We also have Stephen and Lori who are asking about what do people do for fun? What sports are popular there, or do people like to go out and hike?
Well, definitely we love having our free time. And what we do in free time, yes, we love hiking. You'll see a lot of people going out, hiking, enjoying the nature. And definitely we are also keen on sports. And as being Europeans, for us, soccer, or as we call it, the real football, is the thing. It is very popular. You can see kids playing in the streets, playing in the playgrounds, everywhere. Well, our national team is not the best now, but we associate the US with something really great in our soccer history. When it was the World Cup in 1994, it was in the US. It was the best year for Bulgarian soccer because we finished in fourth place.
Oh,
And
wow.
nice. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, glad to know that the Bulgarians play well on US soil. Maybe the US team is just going to have to wait until the World Cup is in Bulgaria to improve our performances a bit over what they've been lately. Stefan, we have time for one last question, a very hard-hitting one. People want to know, how does the mineral water in Sofia actually taste?
Well, rotten eggs, sulfur, but there's a hint here. You can pour the water, leave it for 24 hours, and then the smell is gone. And then you can drink it. And then it is perfect.
I think I might stick with the rakia when I visit someday.
Wise choice.
Thank you so much for taking this time in the middle of the night and in the middle of Bulgaria to talk to us about your home country, Stefan. It has been fantastic. I hope that I can visit soon. And on behalf of all of us with Monday Night Travel, we wish you the best in the rest of your tour. And hopefully you can get back to leading some Rick Steves tour groups next year. All right. Thank you again. And good night, Stefan.
Good night, Gabe.
Good night, everybody.